Hi, third grade. Happy Monday. Welcome back. This is our second week of the Read Aloud. Thanks for tuning in for week 2. I hope everybody had a great weekend. It was super nice weather yesterday, so I hope you got outside and did something nice. I know I went for a walk outside to enjoy the nice temperature and sunshine. I have a couple announcements before we jump back into our Read Aloud. First, I want to let you know that the Science and Social Studies resources come out today. So if your parents have been getting that packet, you can pick that up or get that online today. Since there still was Science and Social Studies material to cover, we went ahead and added some stories you might want to read about those topics on your RAS Kids. So if you log in there, you can read some of those stories and learn about different animals and habitats, food chains, different things like that. I wanted to give a shout out to some students who I've noticed have been working on iExcel or RAS Kids or Get Epic or Extra Math. I'm logging in each week to see what students are working on those at home. So for my math class, I want to give a big shout out especially to Sammy. She's been working each week on iExcel. And then I also noticed that Aubrey, Bailey, Lizzie, and Olivia were spending some time practicing iExcel. So thank you, girls, very much for practicing your math. I want to give a shout out to some of my reading class. I noticed that these folks got on RAS Kids or Get Epic and spent some time reading. That is Ella H and Ella J, Sydney, Aubrey, Dylan, and Milo. So thank you guys to those folks who are spending some time each week learning on Get Epic, RAS Kids, iExcel, and Extra Math. Remember, it's still not summertime yet, so we can be practicing our skills on those websites. Now, let's go on to our joke of the day. This one was actually submitted by Carter. You know how he loves dinosaurs, so he sent in a couple jokes to the third grade teachers, and we wanted to use one of those today. So, his is about the pterodactyl dinosaur. You know how he loves dinosaurs. So, our joke of the day is, why couldn't you hear the pterodactyl go to the bathroom? You see how that's spelled? Why couldn't you hear the pterodactyl go to the bathroom? Because the P is silent. Get it? So, thank you to Carter for submitting that funny one. And if you would like to request or submit a joke, go ahead and email that joke to your teacher, and we'll see if we can go ahead and add that in this week or next week. Okay? So far we've heard chapters 1 through 3 of Runaway Ralph. We've had a change in setting, we've had some new characters, and Ralph is just getting into even more adventure and tackling other obstacles, new obstacles along the way. So today, chapter 4 is pretty long, so I'm going to read part 1, and then Miss Mano is going to finish up part 2 of chapter 4 for you tomorrow. Okay? So chapter 4 is called Chum. When Ralph awoke, the camp was dark. Crickets chirped in the weeds outside the craft shop. In the distance, frogs croaked, were suddenly silent, and then croaked again. Timidly, Ralph began to investigate his new home. Someone had supplied him with food and water. A piece of paper had been dropped thoughtfully into one corner. Knowing that he was safe from the cat, Ralph nibbled at some dried corn and a lettuce leaf until his stomach was full. Then he shredded the paper, which was somewhat harder to chew than the Kleenex he had enjoyed at the Mountain View Inn, and spread it around his cage before he summoned enough courage to explore his exercise wheel. Ralph climbed cautiously onto the wheel, which swung back and forth so alarmingly that he jumped off. He ran around his cage, examining the wheel from every angle. Deciding that the worst could happen to him was falling off, he tried again. This time he stayed on the wheel, and when he became accustomed to the swinging motion, he tried a few cautious steps. The wheel spun pleasantly beneath his feet. Ralph ran faster. The wheel increased its speed. Ralph raced as hard as he could run and then stopped. To his astonishment, the wheel continued to spin, and Ralph was carried completely around the circle, so that for an instant before he began his descent, he was upside down at the top of the wheel. This ride was fun. When Ralph had coasted to a stop, he began to run again so that he could spin around the full circle once more. Round and round went Ralph as the shadows in the craft room shop faded. Spinning on a wheel was as dangerous and exciting as riding a motorcycle. His motorcycle. Ralph leaped from the wheel to the side of the cage nearest the window. The rays of the rising sun slanted through the bamboo, but no matter how hard Ralph strained his eyes, he could not catch even a glimpse of chrome or red metal. If only he had some way of knowing his motorcycle was still hidden beneath the bamboo husk. An alarm clock went off on a lodge nearby, and a boy in rumpled pajamas stumbled out to blow the rousing bugle notes that brought the camp to life. Ralph busied himself scattering his shredded paper about his cage, nibbling his food and racing on his wheel. While the campers were in the dining hall eating breakfast, Garf slipped into the craft shop, checked on Ralph's food and water, and slipped out again so quickly that Ralph only had begun to summon his courage to speak. "That's funny," Ralph thought. "The boy acts as if he's doing something wrong." After breakfast, Aunt Jill and several boys and girls straggled into the craft shop and settled down to make pictures by gluing dried rice, peas, beans, and corn to scraps of plywood. Mosaics, they called them. Such a waste of good food, thought Ralph, recalling some of the hard times he had gone through with his family back at the Mountain View Inn. Those campers were ruining enough food to keep a mouse family healthy for weeks. Before long, the mosaic makers discovered Ralph, who obliged them by racing on his wheel. "Hey, look at him loop-the-loop," said a boy named Pete. "Isn't he darling?" cried a girl. Apparently, all girls called mice, at least mice in cages, darling. Ralph could not resist showing off by looping the loop once more, and when many hands pushed bits of the mosaic into his cage, he nibbled greedily. At least there was no scrounging at Happy Acres Camp. The next time Garf slipped into the craft shop while everyone else was in the dining hall, Ralph gathered his courage to speak. "Say," he began in a timid voice, but the boy must not have heard him, because at the moment he began to sing uncertainly to himself. "Little rabbit frou-frou, hopping through the forest, scooping up the field mice and banging them on the head." Ralph was stunned by the words Garf sang. What kind of boy would sing such a wicked song? Certainly not a boy a mouse could trust. Frightened and disappointed, he scuttled to the farthest corner of his cage and turned his back. Down came the good fairy, and she said, "Little rabbit frou-frou, I don't want to see you, hopping through the forest, scooping up the field mice and banging them on the head." As Ralph sat trembling in his corner, he listened and was puzzled. Garf, with obvious pleasure, was singing the same words that the campers were singing in the dining hall, but the tune was different. When their voices went up, Garf's went down. And when their voices went down, Garf's went up. Sometimes his voice did neither, but wavered someplace in the middle. Ralph was bitterly disappointed by this whole turn of events. Garf was not interested in speed and motorcycles. He was interested in singing and banging field mice on the head. The hot summer days droned on. Ralph was supplied with more food than he could possibly eat, and his exercise wheel kept him trim. Whenever Catso sneaked into the craft shop and showed an interest in Ralph's cage, someone snatched him and shoved him out the door. Life was safe, comfortable, and not unpleasant. From his cage near the window, Ralph had a good view of the camp. To the left, through the bamboo, he could see the boys' lodges, and to the right were the girls' lodges. Before him lay the dining hall, the camp office, a trampoline, a swimming pool, and a circle of benches and old school desks in front of a platform that held a piano. Off to the right, beyond the shade of the walnut trees, a pasture shimmered in the summer heat. Counselors, who were college students like the summer help at the Mountain View Inn, led the activities of all the campers, and one counselor lived in each lodge with 8 or 10 campers. Ralph always found something interesting to watch. Campers spreading their sleeping bags out in the sun to air, counselors leading singing and directing skits around the campfire in the evening, boys racing to be first in line when the bell was rung to announce meals, boys and girls in cowboy boots or English riding boots going off toward the barn for riding lessons. Boys and girls played and kittens romped under the walnut trees. Catso discovered a small hole in the craft shop's rusty screen door, which he explored with a paw as if it were a mouse hole. But faithful old Sam always arrived to tell him to move on. Never once did Garf forget to care for Ralph, and when he was not singing in his strange voice, he sometimes spoke. "Hi, little fellow," he would say, as he quickly detached the water bottle from the cage and refilled it at the sink. He even offered Ralph a sunflower seed with his fingers. Ralph was so lonely he was tempted to accept the seed for the sake of companionship. But then he remembered the song about mice getting banged on the head and retreated to the corner of his cage. One afternoon, when Ralph was particularly lonely, he decided that a boy who fed a mouse 3 times a day could not be so bad after all, and that the next time a sunflower seed was offered, he would venture out and accept it from the boy's fingers. However, when Garf finally came, he began to sing again. This time, the song was different. It was different from the one the campers were singing over in the dining hall. It provoked Ralph's curiosity because he had heard others sing it, but had been unable to catch the words. The campers never sang this song when Aunt Jill was around, which made Ralph even more curious about the words. He was under the impression that they were not fit for grown-up ears, which of course made the song all the more interesting. Garf sang and Ralph listened. Great green gobs of greasy, grimy gopher guts, stimulated monkey feet, and chopped up baby parakeet. That was enough for Ralph. In his haste to hide, he bumped into the spout of his water bottle and flooded one side of his cage. He found refuge behind a lettuce leaf where he sat trembling with nerves and fright while he refused to listen to another word of that fearsome song. Why, the next line might be about mice. Ralph stayed hidden behind the leaf for a long, long time. He was now certain that there was no hope of ever communicating with Garf. Chopped up baby parakeet? Garf actually relished in those dreadful words? Then one day, not long after Ralph had concluded that he was doomed to loneliness, a freckle-faced girl wearing a baggy sweatshirt, shorts, and cowboy boots came into the craft shop carrying a cage at least 10 times the size of Ralph's cage. She set it on the table in the nature corner. "Hi, Aunt Jill, I'm back, and here's Chum again," she announced. I brought his box of food and a bag of cedar shavings. Aunt Jill dropped the strands of the lanyard she was demonstrating to hug the girl. "Well, hi, Lana. Welcome back. It's good to see you again. Chum will have a friend this year." A mouse one of the new boys caught in a butterfly net. She lifted the big cage onto the shelf right beside Ralph's cage. And that's where we're going to stop. Miss Mano is going to finish chapter 4, and then you're going to find out who or what Chum is that Lana just brought beside Ralph. So we're going to stop there. So I want to jump into my little activity for the day. I think Friday, when you read along with Miss Jones, she asked you to kind of check in because the setting has changed. So she wanted you to draw a picture and write a couple sentences of that. Today, I'm going to do a little word study again like I did last week. This book has a lot of good vocabulary. It has a lot of big words, a lot of character trait words. So what I wanted to do is pick out a word that has both a prefix and a suffix, okay? So this word right here, preheated, has a prefix and a suffix. Now, we know that we use prefixes and suffixes to help us understand or determine the meaning of an unfamiliar word or a bigger word. So here, we know that pre is a prefix or chunk of meaning that's added to a root word at the beginning. In this case, this prefix means before, okay? Our root word is heat, and then our suffix ed, meaning something that already happened in the past tense. That's our chunk of meaning that's attached to the end of a root word, okay? So I want you to think about what you know about prefixes and suffixes, what they mean, where you attach them to the root words, okay? And I want you to try breaking apart and identifying the prefix, suffix, and root word of these 5 words, okay? And I'm going to post pictures of these on our school website. That way, if you want to give it a try, you can see which words I picked or print out the picture or write them down on a piece of paper. So I want you to try to identify the suffix, the prefix, and the root word like I did with preheated, okay, meaning I heated something up beforehand, like I preheated the oven before I baked the cookies, okay? So I want you to try. My 5 words here are discovered, uncertainly, disappointed, remarked, and unexpectedly. Okay, so I want you to give a try breaking apart those words because I don't want you to forget about all our word study skills. The second activity I have for you is in this chapter, it talked about mosaics. The campers in the craft room were making mosaics. They were using supplies that Ralph would have considered food. We know from studying ancient civilizations of Greece and Rome that mosaics are pictures made of tiny pieces of glass or tile or stone, and they add all those pieces together to make a beautiful picture. Often they depicted images of daily life in those ancient civilizations. So if you are feeling artsy and creative and crafty, and you have some construction paper or tissue paper or different things around the house, and you want to cut that up into tiny pieces, why don't you go ahead and use those color pages to create a mosaic of something spring related, like a flower or a sun or rainbow or an Easter egg, something like that. And if you do that craft and make that at home, go ahead and email a picture of your creation to your teacher, and then maybe we can add that to the website if you take the time to do that. So those are my 2 activities. I'd like you to identify prefix and suffix of these multisyllable words, and then if you want to get crafty and make a mosaic like the campers at Happy Acres. Okay, so thanks for joining me today on week 2 of our Read Aloud. Miss Mano's going to take it away tomorrow with part 2 of chapter 4. Remember, if you want to submit a joke, go ahead and email that or have your parents email that to your teacher, and make sure you remind your parents to be checking the website. We're going to put all our stuff on there of the jokes and Read Aloud. Okay? So I hope you have a great week. I think it's supposed to be good temperatures, so try to play outside some and soak up the sunshine. I think I'm going to try to get outside today or another day this week. So I hope you have a great week with your family, and I will see you next time.